which quarterback is going to have the bigger impact on this game? Is it going to be Lamar Jackson or Carson Wentz?
It's going to be the better quarterback. Lamar Jackson, of course. It's going to be the quarterback whose entire offense is predicated on his play. Lamar Jackson, of course. Carson Wentz, good and bad, has an influence. Stephen A., I'll leave that to you. But you can replace Carson Wentz in the Eagles' offense with a lot of guys, and they do just as well. In fact, probably better. Nick Foles, they replaced Carson Wentz because of injury with Nick Foles. Both years they did it, they got better, won the Super Bowl, and then made the playoffs and went on a little run. Carson Wentz is for whatever he can do, is more of a traditional quarterback, and he's been playing the position, I can't say like worst in the league, but it hasn't been good. Lamar Jackson is less of a traditional quarterback. Lamar Jackson has gifts that have been, when Ozzie Newsome drafted him, they didn't try to fit a square peg in a round hole. They said, no, we're going to build the offense around you. And so every game the Ravens play, Lamar Jackson has his play has an outsized impact on the outcome of the game, and it's no different against the Eagles.
I think Carson Wentz is going to have a bigger impact. And the reason why I think so, Max, is because he could potentially be so awful that he loses the game before the Ravens have a chance to win the game. That's how bad he has been when you consider, the struggles that he has had. And so as a result of that, I got to look at him. Lamar Jackson is the leading rusher for the Baltimore Ravens. Now, they got the second worst passing attack in the National Football League, but the only team they've lost to is the Kansas City Chiefs. Two of his last 3 games, he's completed 53% of his passes and 51% of his passes. That's putrid, okay? But nevertheless, still in all, they're 4-1. Why? Because they got the #1 defense in the NFL. They're top 6 in yards allowed. They're number 5 against the rush. Their Achilles heel to some degree is against the pass, where they're only average as a defensive unit. But guess what? Average has looked spectacular against Carson Wentz thus far this season. Yeah. So it's not that Lamar Jackson is not great. It's not that he doesn't have the ability to be electrifying, Max, or anything like that. I'm basically piggybacking off of previous arguments that you have made over the last several weeks about how potentially awful Carson Wentz can be. Now, I believe in him, and I believe he'll turn it around. He's only 27. I'm not giving up on him. I like Doug Peterson as a coach. I think that they'll get their act together. But because of how awful he has been in so many moments this year, that profound impact that he can have on his offense, because he's trying to do too much. He doesn't have the requisite weapons available to him. Goddard is out. Obviously, Deshaun Jackson is out, that kind of stuff. And you're trying to force the issue. Those kind of things can spell doom for the Philadelphia Eagles before Lamar Jackson even has an opportunity to make an impact.
I think that's persuasively argued. The only thing I'll say about that is Carson Wentz is bad at situational football, right? You're down 2 scores, you're driving, you have a chance. That's when he turns the ball over. Late in the game, now it's 3 scores. It's a backbreaker. Late in the game, you're driving again. You take a sack and you lose yardage, and now the game's over. He's bad at situational football. But I wouldn't say he's the reason they lost last week. What I did say, if you remember, is he needs to be the reason they win. Mm-hmm. When Carson Wentz has not played terribly, he's played okay, but not good enough to overcome other bad qualities of this team. But he's being paid like he should be overcoming those qualities. So do I think he'll play well enough to be the reason they win? No, I don't. But I do think Lamar Jackson will be. When Lamar Jackson's lost, it's true. As Brian Greasy pointed out, his eyes have looked down when the blitz came, right? He didn't keep his eyes down the field. On the other hand, there wasn't much to look at. It's not like there were a lot of hot routes or anything like that. Like the whole team was underperforming. But more often than not, Lamar Jackson's the reason his team wins. Carson Wentz recently, at best, has not been the reason they've lost, but he is not elevated. I think Lamar Jackson determines the game.
Well, I think that when we look at Carson Wentz last week, we said that he wasn't the reason they lost because he stepped up and put at least 29 points on the board against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But for the most part this season, he's been relatively moribund, to be kind. He hasn't been the kind of quarterback any of us expected. Now, last year, I gave him more of a pass than you because of the plethora of injuries he had available to them. Nelson Aguilar was out, Alshon Jeffrey was out, Deshaun Jackson was out for practically the entire season. We got all of that. You got third stringers and practice squad players that he's throwing the football to. That was not the case this year. He was just bad, and he was forcing the issue. And so now we're looking in a position where we're looking at the Philadelphia Eagles, and the fact is they had one win, and they were in first place until Dallas won last week. That's how awful the NFC East is. And so if we're decrying the NFC East as being so god-awful, and that was before Dak Prescott went out. Now your starting quarterbacks are Andy Dalton, Carson Wentz, Daniel Jones, and we don't know whether it's going to be Kyle Allen or Alex Smith.
The team with no name, maybe they just don't go with a quarterback.
There you go.
No name, no quarterback.
A team with no name. I mean, there's a National Football League team that doesn't have a name.
You think about that.
He says decrying. I'm just crying because as bad as the NFC East is, my Giants are in last place.
Yes.
In the worst division ever.
Yes. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.